Back to another Black History Month edition of Random Cardinal of the Week. If you've enjoyed our episodes over the past few weeks, make sure to like and subscribe to Redbird Rundown on Spotify and YouTube. While you're there, check out all the other great Cardinals coverage and analysis across the channel, including the Redbird Rundown podcast and Cardinals on My Time. Last week, we talked about the earliest days of integration for the St. Louis Cardinals, a process that officially began in 1954 with the debuts of first baseman Tom Alston and pitcher Bill Greason. Neither player put together a long or flashy major league career, but their presence cracked open the door for several future stars. Just a few years later, the Cardinals added outfielder Curt Flood in 1958 and called up pitcher Bob Gibson in 1959. That same year, the club acquired Bill White, who Jonathan did an incredible job of highlighting in the first Black History Month segment of Redbird Rundown. As Jonathan also mentioned in his discussion of Bill White, in the spring of 1961, Flood, White, and Gibson all reported to camp together in St. Petersburg, Florida, 14 years after Jackie Robinson broke baseball's color barrier. But Florida was still operating under Jim Crow segregation laws, which meant that black and white players were forced to stay in separate hotels. Flood and White would raise concerns publicly and eventually privately, with Flood actually meeting Cardinals owner Gussie Busch. Busch was stunned to learn that his players were being separated in spring training, which honestly shows the disconnect that white owners often had with the reality of integration. When the hotel housing the white players refused to integrate, Busch and a local businessman bought two nearby adjacent hotels so that the entire team could live together for the remainder of the spring. And soon, black and white players and their families were eating, swimming, and socializing side by side in St. Petersburg, Florida. And it actually became quite the tourist attraction in St. Petersburg, and many Cardinals later believed that that bonding experience is what helped fuel the club's success throughout the 1960s. That success peaked with the famous 1964 trade that sent pitcher Ernie Broglio to the Chicago Cubs in exchange for a young outfielder named Lou Brock. Led by Brock, Gibson, and Curt Flood, the Cardinals won the National League pennant and defeated the New York Yankees in a 7-game World Series. They'd go on to win it all again in 1967 and capture another pennant in 1968. A season that was so dominant by Gibson that Major League Baseball actually lowered the pitching mound pretty significantly after he posted a microscopic 1.12 ERA. However, unfortunately for Cardinals fans, the 1970s were far less kind. The team posted just 5 winning seasons across the decade and didn't play a single playoff game at Busch Stadium. Still, there were some bright spots for the team. Joe Torre won the 1971 MVP, Bob Forsch threw the first of his 2 no-hitters in 1973, and Lou Brock would shatter Maury Will's stolen bases record in 1974. Yet, one incredible achievement from 1974 has been largely forgotten by Cardinals fans and baseball fans really across the league, which brings us to today's Random Cardinal of the Week, Arnold Ray Bake McBride. Bake McBride was born in Fulton, Missouri, which is about 100 miles west of St. Louis. His father, who also was given the nickname Bake, and there's really not a single story as to how that nickname came about, pitched for the Kansas City Monarchs, and his son inherited both his name and his athletic talent. McBride's high school didn't have a baseball team, and instead he starred in football, basketball, and track, earning all-state honors in football before a serious ankle injury nearly derailed his career. At Westminster College in Missouri, he ran track and set a school record in the 220 meters. He also played basketball and pitched for the college's baseball team. After leaving college only after 2 years, McBride nearly accepted a tryout with the NBA's Phoenix Suns. But an open tryout for the Cardinals at Busch Stadium in 1969 changed everything. Though he showed up as a pitcher, the sprint speed that he showed from home to first impressed Cardinal scouts so much that they actually converted him to an outfielder on the spot. The following year, the Cardinals selected Big McBride in the 37th round of the 1970 draft. The left-handed hitter immediately hit .353 in the minors, stole bases at will, and climbed the system relatively quickly. He even was able to finish his college degree from Westminster in the offseason in 1971. On July 26, 1973, Big McBride made his major league debut against the New York Mets, replacing Lou Brock in left field and actually driving in his first big league run with a single in the 8th inning. Then came 1974. McBride made the opening day roster and never looked back. Playing center field and wearing number 21 in honor of Curt Flood, he hit .300 nearly all season, delivered clutch performances, including 3 4-hit games in 4 days in early September. And on September 11th, he scored the winning run in the 25th inning of a 7-hour and 4-minute game against the Mets, which was at the time the second longest in Major League history. McBride finished the 1974 season hitting .309, including 173 hits, 46 multi-hit games, 30 stolen bases, and 81 runs scored, which both were second behind Lou Brock. Alongside Brock and Reggie Smith, Big McBride helped form an all-black outfield that combined for a 13 WAR, and each player hit over .300, which was the first Cardinals outfield to do so since 1902. Due to his performance that year, Big McBride became the first African-American player in Cardinals history to win the National League Rookie of the Year award. Though injuries would limit the next 2 years in St. Louis for McBride, and further complicated by the managerial change from Hall of Famer Red Schoendienst to Vern Rapp, and highlighted by Rapp's strict anti-facial hair policy, McBride remained productive before being traded to the Philadelphia Phillies in 1977, only 3 weeks after he had actually signed a new 3-year contract with the Cardinals. Unlike many of the Random Cardinals featured up to this point on this segment, McBride actually had the best years of his career away from St. Louis. In Philadelphia, the newly nicknamed Shake and Bake became a fan favorite. He hit .339 in 1977 after his trade, hit double-digit home runs, and stole at least 25 bases in each of the next 2 seasons, and actually homered in the 1980 World Series against the Kansas City Royals, a series that the Phillies would win in 6 games. After 2 injury-plagued years in Cleveland, which included an eye infection from contact lenses that nearly cost him his eyesight, and 1 more in the Texas Rangers organization, Big McBride retired in 1984 at the age of 35 and returned home to Missouri. He would later coach in professional baseball in both the Mets and Cardinals organizations in the 1980s and 1990s. And he actually had a baseball field named in his honor in his hometown of Fulton. He was then named to the Philadelphia Phillies Wall of Fame in 2022. Since McBride, only 1 other black Cardinals player, Vince Coleman in 1985, has won the Rookie of the Year award. Although Big McBride debuted nearly 20 years after the Cardinals first integrated, he still dealt with stereotypes throughout his career. His appearance and style, which often featured a large afro and a beard, his mild-mannered nature, and his injury history led some fans to question his effort and intensity. However, Lou Brock would later say that Big McBride got a bad rap and played through far more injuries than people knew about. And many Cardinals and Phillies coaches and players praised McBride for his consistency and overall baseball ability. Reflecting on his career, McBride once said, "When I was drafted so low, I knew I'd get the chance to prove myself. And I think I did." And for me, Big McBride absolutely did. Thank you again for listening to Random Cardinal of the Week. And one more time, if you haven't done so already, make sure you like and subscribe to Redbird Rundown on Spotify and YouTube to get continuing coverage of the St. Louis Cardinals in both the Redbird Rundown podcast and Cardinals on My Time.